Okay, today we're talking about the craziest part, one of the crazier parts of living or even visiting Costa Rica. The lack of street signs, the lack of navigational aids, the lack of addresses. I don't know why that is here, but it's a confusing mess. You might get a letter, you might see a letter to a business or a person. It says something like 100 meters east of whatever, the post office, and 20 meters south. There aren't any street addresses here. And people say, well, how do you get your mail? Well, I get my mail at the post office. You can rent a box here and you can get mail. You can even get mail from the States. You can routinely get mail. But getting it delivered to your home, hey, Aaron, that is the trick. That's the difficult. That's the sticky bit. And there aren't even street signs for the most part. Even in San Jose, where there are street signs, you might have Avenida 5, followed by the next street over, which you would think would be Avenida 6. Hey, Pippi, it might be 237th Street, and then the next one might be Avenida 1. It just doesn't make any kind of decipherable sense, unlike the states where you have Main Street, First Street, Second Street, Third Street. It doesn't follow any of those patterns. The other issue with this is it becomes horrible if you're trying to give somebody directions somewhere. I've seen that go horribly wrong many times here. People here navigate by the strangest things. I remember, when we were living back in Copa, somebody trying to give somebody directions to something, and it went something like, go down the road a little ways, turn left where the horse died 3 years ago. That's the kind of navigational aids we're talking about here. And GPS sometimes works here and sometimes it goes horribly wrong. Like, I know when I drive to Arenal, the hotel that I always stay at, if you put it in, it'll put you this long circuitous route and put you at a hotel with a similar name near San Jose. So I know I can't put that hotel name in any time. I have to just go with what I know. We got 2 things stolen this week and no mail for days. I emailed post office this morning and they said the police arm of the USPS will investigate. That is true, Aaron. They will investigate. Whether or not they'll find anything is anybody else's guess, because I've seen that happen. I've had packages stolen in the U.S. That's frustrating. I used to fight with routinely with not the post office, but with UPS. They have the tendency to stick the package under the bush, and if I wasn't looking there, I would not see it. Aaron, I don't know where the Hyatt is nearest one is here, but thank you. I don't know where that would be. The thing with going back to the addresses, we have a post office box here, and everything goes to the Correo. It's not in our town. It's a few little towns away. But we get there every couple of weeks, and usually there's nothing in there. Once in a great while, the broker sends us a statement or something like that, but we don't get much in it. But here's where it gets comical. We live in a village, okay? We live in an offshoot of a village, not even actually in a real village. You drove in circles for an hour? Pippi, no one knew their left from their right. Derecho is right and Izquierda is left. So there's that. Wasted more gas than the $5 we're trying to get returning our glass bottles. Yes, that is the problem here. And it's very confusing if you don't know where you're going. That's the problem. If you know where you're going and you know where the horse died 3 years ago, you're golden. Where I live is it's an offshoot of a tiny village. It's not even a village. We're a little weird triangular piece shoved up against one of the major roads in the area. Off a back road, you have to go 3 or 4 roads and no paving to get to. And that's fine. It becomes unfine when I have to tell repairmen how to get here who've never dealt with me before. I called the pool guys and they know and said, oh, we know where you are. There used to be a really good way to tell them where we are that's no longer in service. Yes, the COVID has killed our nearby house of ill repute because I would have somebody didn't know me, said new plumber on the phone, said, "Well, how do you get to your house? Where are you at?" I said, "Well, I'm in Crusade, blah blah blah." Where in Crusade? Crusade just means crossroads. And since I'm not really in the crossroads for the village, and I'm not really in the crossroads for the main, and the nearest village is teeny tiny, and if I say, well, I'm by the airport, which I am very close to the airport, um, it's even more confusing. All it does is start things more confusing. So we had a house of ill repute for a little while here. Well, up until COVID. COVID killed it. COVID killed the house of ill repute, or we used to call it the whorehouse. And that's exactly what it was. It was prostitution is legal here. So you have these houses of ill repute every which way and legally. So there was one not far from us. And so people would say, "Where are you near?" And say, "Do you know where the blah, blah, blah whorehouse is?" Say, "Yeah, I know where that's at." Say, "Well, go there, go past it, hang a right. We're the sixth house on the left." Or if somebody did not know, I would say, "Have you seen the signs on the road for XYZ House of Ill Repute?" I said, "Yeah," on the main road. Said, "Find it, take a left at the first sign, take a left at the second sign, go past it, hang a right, there we are." So it was a good navigational tool. They've since closed, and I think a regular bar has reopened in its place. So I have a sad about that because now I'm going to have to figure out how to tell the new guys that are doing repair work to get to our house because there are no road. Well, I know what the road name is, but anytime I spit out the road name here, nobody knows that road name. Everybody knows the house of ill repute. So that's usually what I do. I guess from now on I'll have to tell them to navigate by the grocery store because we're not, I don't know. I can see the mountain next to the grocery store, but I can't see the store from here. But if I had to drive it, it would be 4 blocks maybe by driving. So that's going to have to be my new focal point, I think. I can no longer use the house of ill repute. And it's funny because usually when I tell Americans that story, they laugh. Because if you've been here, hey, Anne Marie, hey, from Lafayette. I've got friends and family in Lafayette. Well, friends right now. Most of my family's in the New Orleans area. Um, so anytime I would tell how the navigational story, the whorehouse, to my friends, they would all laugh, particularly the ones here who know how there's no addresses on anything and that GPS doesn't work 3/4 of the time. Um, but one time I made the mistake of telling a nice man at the furniture store when he asked me where I lived, and I said, "Well, I live at Cruce so and so, not too far from El Llanito in the airport." And he said, "I don't know where that's at." I said, "Do you know where the whorehouse is?" I have never offended someone quite so much as that man. He had rather fit and said, "My wife would not want to let me to know where the house of ill repute is." Well, gee, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you can't keep your pants on because you know where the prostitutes are. Ay, 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 as they say here. I laughed over that one. Now, he didn't laugh too well, but he was just very offended, very pompous, a kind of a Fraser type, I would say, very pompous. But I don't understand that. I don't understand being like that. This is a very relaxed atmosphere. You're not going to find anybody getting too upset about anything here. Like I said before, they don't have real addresses. They don't have street signs. Nobody knows where anything is. So we all just kind of go with it. It's part of the whole Pura Vida experience. Um, I always tell my friends when they come, GPS is fun, yes, but have a map. Maps are really the best way to get around here. even though the map may not show you that that road that you're looking at is not paved or washed out or whatever. There it is. There it is. And it is so nice to be able to talk about Costa Rica instead of you know who today. So, the other thing about the roads of Costa Rica is when you're looking at those maps, they may not be paved. And if you're looking at GPS and they're routing you around, it may be the same thing. Everybody here uses Waze. They tell me they've had good luck with Waze. I've only used Waze a couple of times, and it seems like it knows what it's doing. When I had to leave the hospital in September with my husband when he had his correction surgery, I used Waze, and instead of taking me the usual way through San Jose, down Route 27, Siete Vento, instead of that, it took us a different way. It took us an older back way, Route 1, through all these tiny little towns and these, and it was actually really nice because I was sick, he was sick, and it was just not a fun trip down there going down 27 before hitting the major road that runs through Punta Arenas and goes on up to where we are. So it was actually, it was nice. But I always look askance at those things, and I always consult my maps. You learn after you've been here a while. That's what I always laugh when I see people buy brand spanking new vehicles here, or they bring a brand spanking new vehicle. You can only bring your car to Costa Rica if it's 100% paid off. You cannot bring it if you owe any money on it. They're just not going to let you do that. And you have to have the title in your name, the whole 9 yards. And so we had been here enough times that we had learned you got to bring an old beater if you're going to bring anything. Bring something reliable. It's got a few years on it, but you're not going to care if you get a ding or two, because you are going to get a ding or two on your car here. You're going to be, there are times when I've forded rivers. There's a back road I take to my home. I have to ford right over a river. There's another back road I take that goes over a river. It goes through a river in the low spot. And that's fine. I haven't had any problems with that. But there's going to be unpaved roads where rocks are going to ding your car up. You're going to have vendor benders here because people drive insane. People drive like there are no rules. And not only are people driving insane, you have little tiny motorcycles, people driving, people on bicycles. You have the dudes on bicycles pushing their little ice cream carts, and other vendors that you're going to see, street vendors all over the place, confusing the traffic. You're going to have piratas, which are the unofficial taxi drivers. I'm having brain farts this morning. The piratas, they're going to be the collectivos. They're going to be the unofficial taxis. Then you have your official taxis. Then you have everybody else. And it can be, I have seen so many crazy things. Cattle spontaneously appearing in the road. You called it Pippi Longstockings, because the other day I posted a picture up, and then I had gone to Santa Cruz and then down to Nicoya because Jim had to have his motorcycle, the Retive, done, which is a yearly inspection. And I followed him down because he was going to have to leave the motorcycle at the Yamaha dealership, and they were going to have to work on it so it passed inspection. That's a yearly thing. Something about adjusting the idle. I don't know. I don't ride his motorcycle. So on the way back, they looked at his motorcycle and said, yeah, this is going to take more than a few hours. We're going to have to do this as we can. Maybe we'll have it done in a couple of days, maybe not. So you just know that things take a little longer here, and you just say, okay, that's fine, do your thing. And so we started back to Tamarindo, and we weren't far back. We were between Nicoya and Santa Cruz, which the road between Nicoya and Santa Cruz in places is merely scraped out between mountains. You've got mountains on both sides on a lot of the road there. So there's not a lot of moving over. And we came on 3 guys on bicycles moving a huge herd of cows down the street. I assume they were moving them from one field to another. I don't know. They're milk cows, and you can tell milk cows from beef cows here because the milk cows are all bony looking and have full bags. The beef cattle are big and bulky. So I knew it was milk cows, and you just have to laugh and go slow. I see them routinely on the road to Playa Grande. When I go to walk the beach there, about half the time you're going to run into the cattle crew. I'm not sure really why, but every time I turn around, there's also on the road from Wacas to what's the next little town over from Wacas? It's a mountain road. It goes to the mountain, and then about the time you get out of the mountain, there's a place where you see them frequently. But it's funny, rather than seeing caballeros on horseback, these guys, they were all on bicycles. They were herding cattle on bicycles, which is something I'm not used to seeing, even after being here quite some time. So they were herding cattle, and we just waited until they had done their thing and then just very slowly passed them. The cattle are used to the traffic at least, and so you're not going to rush. You're not going to risk a cattle hurting your car in any way, shape, or form. But you are going to risk all kinds of other things. I've been backed up on. I've had people that have not just backed up into me, who've hit me. I mean, little minor fender benders are very common here. So that's why I always tell people, bring a beater, bring something that's reliable, but you don't really care if you're going to get a bump or two, because you're going to get bumps here. There's no way around it, unfortunately. We have to laugh. Our last bump, Jim backed into somebody else's car and knocked out their light, and they wanted to call the police and do the whole 9 yards. And it was like, no, here's X amount of dollars. Here's $40. Go get the light cover, please, because all we did was bump out their light cover. We did our car quite the damage to it. Now we can't open the back door. Oh well, say la vie. It's all good, pure Vita. Getting your car fixed here is really cheap, unless you fall into the hands of somebody who knows that you're a gringo, who decides they're going to charge you gringo prices. Now, there are a couple places around here that charge gringo prices, but they do super good work. So if you don't want to fool around with the local guys, you can go one to a German I know who's been here many, many years, who does excellent work, but he charges pretty substantially for that excellent work. But he also is honest, and he won't dick around and tell you you got to fix X, Y, and Z when you really don't. There's also a guy I know from church who owns a car repair center here that's run to American standards, and he charges American prices, of course. But like I said, those places are good if you don't want to fool around and you don't want to have to wait, and you want to go ahead and get it done ASAP and have it done right the first time. Now, there are a lot of really good Tico mechanics, and I've always said, ask around. We found some of our best repair people and mechanics just by asking other people, saying, hey, who do you use? Who do you recommend? Who do you not recommend? Why do you not recommend them? We've gotten taken a couple times, but not too often. One thing you have to be careful of here is Ticos will not tell you bad news. They just will not do it. They'll string you along with hope, because they won't tell you bad news, because their culture, you don't say ugly things about anybody. You don't say anything. If you ask one of them, how do I look in this outfit? You're not going to get a very honest opinion. You're going to get, oh, you look beautiful. It's the culture. And as long as you understand that's the culture, and every time you're dealing with somebody in a work situation, it may be that they're telling you what you want to hear. The best example of that for me was our car started making a weird noise. I told Jim, I said, that's the filter on the automatic transmission. I know it is, because I used to have an old car that made that same noise. And when it made that noise, it meant that the filter needed to be changed. Went around to 10 different Tico mechanics. Everybody said the same thing. Oh, no, it's not the filter. Filter will be expensive. It's a cheap repair. Nope. Not a cheap repair. It was indeed the filter. So there's that. Now I just have to address on the back end, even so, I heard from, I'm going to veer extreme here. I heard from one of Catherine's many stands who's upset that I mentioned that her stand seemed to either have um, suffering from some type of mental illness or trauma, who wants me to stop mentioning that. I'm not going to stop mentioning that because why? Because I think that she exploits that. I think that she has those people as her fans. They tell her their trauma, their secret, whatever, and she mentally files it away. Why do I think that? Because look at what happened with Nat. Nat was one of her ride and dies, and Nat's a very nice person. I've talked to her a fair amount on Twitter. Nat confided in KJ, and what happened when the trial started going down, and Nat gave a deposition. What do you think happened? The trolls went after Nat, and they were armed with all the information that Nat had shared with KJ. So KJ weaponized what Nat had told her about her own DID, dissociative identity disorder, I think it is. She weaponized that and she used it against her and tried to intimidate her into not saying anything. Now, KJ swears up and down that she has nothing to do with the hackers and the people who were threatening Nat, but all I know is they suddenly had the information on Nat's mental condition that Nat had given KJ. I think it points to the fact that they got that information from KJ, even if KJ was not involved with them in any way, shape, or form. They somehow had that information. So I'm not gonna stop talking about that. I think it's something to be said. I think I've made some observations about her largest fan base. It's pretty easy to see, we're not dealing with the most sophisticated group of people. We're dealing with a bunch of people running around that are very hurt and are stuck in their hurt. And they're somehow thinking that she's going to help them with that hurt or help or cure them of it. Or I don't know. I do know trauma dumping is a thing. It's something I've experienced with NLQ and with my talks here sometimes. Trauma dumping is fine for me. It's something that I've had experience with my jobs, and I'm perfectly fine listening to anybody else's story, especially their stories of how they were abused at various churches and church residential teen centers. I've heard a lot of that. And I don't share that information when people share that with me. That is one of those things that's sacrosanct as far as I'm concerned, unless I have permission to share it. There may be a chapter or several chapters on the end of my Carol Ann Cole book that actually deal with this, because I'm hearing more and more people talking about their time at teen residential treatment centers that are IFB affiliated, Episcopal affiliated, Catholic affiliated, all of that. A couple days ago, I was doing a live with what I was sure was a Nigerian romance scammer with a Mexican name. Hey, Bliss. So I was doing this Nigerian scam baiter thing that I normally do with these romance scammers, and he was taking a long time answering. And I finally saw I needed to get offline with him, and I did. I was mistaken. He was not a Nigerian. He was somebody that had been abused by a religious organization. He needed to talk about it. The most bizarre thing about it was that he wanted to make sure I wasn't 100% white before he told me about it. So I started telling him a little bit about my ethnic makeup. I'm not 100% white. I got a mixture of all kinds of crazy things. I did one of those, I even did one of those tests and was surprised at some of the things that came back and not surprised at some of the others. So I got to see what my genetic makeup was, and it was very different than what my mother's was even. And a bunch of people in the family, I'm going to throw caution here about doing those. A bunch of people in my family did those. I mean, a bunch. I'm not talking about my kids, even though one of them did. I'm talking like cousins, aunts, and uncles. And a couple of long dead family secrets emerged because of the information that came out. So there's a whole lot of trauma that came out of that. Not for me personally, but for some of my relatives, most indeed, more trauma. So that's my objection to KJ's fan base. A lot of them have experienced trauma. They're looking to her for an answer. The only thing that's going to happen is they'll be weaponized and used against them at some point if they turn against her in any way, shape, or form. And that's wrong, because anybody suffering that really needs to go to legitimate help. They need to find the right therapist. Not every therapist is going to be skilled at guiding you through healing from trauma, but there are a lot of them that are very familiar with this. This is one of those things I keep running across more and more and more. So that's my Saturday morning rant. Bliss, that was the most shocking part, was the muttness of it. Some of it was really surprising. One of them, the big surprises that come through my mother's, showed up in mine. It was a dash of Scandinavian. I was like, Scandinavian? That is just nuts. We don't have anything from there. Turns out, and I started researching it later, that a lot of the British Isles women to the north, like the Irish and Scottish, which I have some Irish and Scottish blood, the Vikings overran them and raped a lot of the women. So there are a lot of people that actually have Viking, Scandinavian type blood. And I'm one of those. So it was a real shock. Some of it. Like I said, some of it I did not know. And there were other parts that once I found out, I had to talk to relatives like, oh yeah, blah, 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 this happened. Okay. So I think that a lot of us are probably a lot less of what we thought. My husband did one, and he's supposed to be 100% German, and it didn't turn out that way. There was some Polish and some other things that he had no idea about in there from his family. I should say he didn't take it, his brother took it. But I'm going to assume his brother is as close to his. He refuses to take it, just like he's been refusing to get the vaccine too. He's been refusing to get his Fauci ouchie until our daughter talked him into it. And I got to say, I'm impressed. It was an impressive job of salesmanship she did to him, and guilt tripped him into getting it. So he's going in less than a month to visit friends in Michigan and get his Fauci ouchie. I'm going to wait until I get back to the States, probably later in the summer, and I'll get mine. I can't wait. I hope all of you have the opportunity to do so if you can, if you feel like you want to do it. I hope you wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, social distance, and wear your masks until we're all that way. I know that they just released in the States, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask anymore. Woo woo for all those vaccinated people. That's got to be the best feeling in the world, because those masks are a pain in the ass to wear. Okay, I'm going to go. I'll talk to you guys later. Oh, and I have a Nigerian on the line, a live wire, who's already said, "Hey, darling, you're so beautiful." So I probably will pop up on here. He says he is in Yemen with the U.S. Army. The U.S. troops have been pulled out of there. Everything on his profile is a damn lie.